All right, now I'm going to introduce our amazing team from Austin. So, Kirsten Johansson is an environmental program coordinator with Austin Watershed Protection. She is originally from rural Vermont, where she grew up exploring forests, catching frogs, which sparked her lifelong love of nature and connecting people to it. She's got a degree in environmental studies, anthropology, and education, and did her graduate degree in curriculum and instruction. She's been in Austin about 11 years and has worked in advancing sustainability, equity, and green workforce development. She spent 5 years as an Austin park ranger, where she relaunched the Park Ranger Cadet Program and later joined the Austin Civilian Conservation Corps. You guys may have versions of conservation corps in your own cities. So she's got experience, a lot of hands-on experience in that realm, which she used to help expand equitable pathways to green careers. She joined the Austin Watershed Protection's planning team last year, and where she supports interdepartmental planning, collaboration, and implementation of city initiatives, including GSI, while continuing to be a champion for a strong and inclusive green workforce. So you can see why we wanted her on this team and here to talk to you guys today. Meredith Gauthier is the Sustainability and Resilience Program Manager for Austin Parks and Recreation. So she works on the development and implementation of wide-ranging sustainability initiatives at the department. She's an accredited professional in LEED, BD&C, and sites. That we'll have some sessions, by the way, about sites for those of you who are interested in that certification for development at the Greater and Greener Conference. And she's got bachelor's in ecology and English from Rice University in Texas and master's in public policy and planning from UT Austin. She previously led the Community Gardens Program and Wildlife Austin. Um, and she prioritizes edible landscapes and wildlife habitat for public spaces. We do have there's some cool food forests in Austin that are definitely worth exploring as well, by the way, if any of you guys are going to get there for the conference. She loves working on complex projects that focus on ecological and equity goals and resilience. And then finally, we have Saudri Albornoz. She's an urban planner with nearly 20 years of experience in community engagement and nonprofit leadership. A native Austinite, those are getting harder to find. She's dedicated to realizing a vision of an ecologically regenerative Austin where everyone has the opportunity to thrive. So, Saudri leads their equity-focused management effort called Rain to River, which is a process to create a strategic plan that's going to guide the work of Austin Watershed Protection for the next 10 years. So she's thinking about how this is all changing the way they do their work there. We're joining Watershed Protection about 6 years ago. She was director of the Sustainable Food Center's Grow Local program, where she led their support for community and school gardens. And she also co-chaired their equity team. She has a Master's of Science in Community and Regional Planning, also from UT Austin, and is a founding board member of Fruitful Commons, which is a really cool nonprofit that supports neighborhood scale community agriculture. So that is our team from Austin. And with that, I'm going to hand over the floor to them to share a bit of their journey in this work with you all, and then we'll have a great Q&A to learn more about it. Take it away, guys.
All right. Bear with me for just a moment while I share my screen. Always a little bit of a transition. Okay, can you guys see that?
Yes.
Yes.
Thank you. Awesome. Okay, well, I'll jump right into it. Thank you so much for those amazing intros, Gideon, and for all of that context. I am so humbled and excited by the group that we have joining us today. So many people from Austin and also from around the country. So I'll jump in. So yeah, thank you so much for having us today. We are so excited to share with you about our Austin team's journey gaining a better understanding of the status of GSI across our city and identifying opportunities to strengthen stewardship of these super important assets long term while also building an equitable green workforce development ecosystem. So, the work that we're going to share with you about today has been carried out by a team that includes those of us who are here today presenting, but also several more people who couldn't join us. Actually, several people who are also in this webinar. Um, but I'll introduce the kind of core team folks. You've met Kirsten, Meredith, and me via our bios. We're the ones who are presenting. We also have Lindsay Mockamer, who is an engineer and division manager with Austin Parks and Recreation, and she's going to be here to support by answering any of the more technical questions you may have. Our GSI team also includes Austin Youth River Watch, which is a nonprofit organization that provides out-of-school programming where river watchers carry out work like water quality monitoring, native planting, invasive species removal, trash inventories, stream bank restoration, and small-scale GSI construction like rain gardens and cisterns. Um, and then Sheridan Ray and Arlene Carreño from the Equity Division of Austin's Equity and Inclusion Office also joined us. These two are in the photo that you see here. Sheridan on that rock and Arlene hiding in the bushes with me. And then finally, Elijah Scott, who's not in the picture, joined us as a high school aged intern from the organization EcoRise, which mobilizes a new generation of leaders to design healthy, just, and thriving communities by advancing student-led solutions and expanding equitable access to green career pathways. So why is GSI, or Green Stormwater Infrastructure, so important to us? In Austin, stormwater management is extra important because we're located in what's called Flash Flood Alley, which is a geographic area in central Texas where the weather patterns and geology kind of join forces to create an area that's super prone to rapid or flash flooding. And while GSI alone can't manage extreme flooding here in Flood Alley, a network of GSI features spread throughout the landscape could help significantly with managing impacts from smaller storm events or significant storm events. So we're really excited about this potential. Also, all the co-benefits that Gideon was going through are on our radar as well. Before we dive into telling you about our GSI journey, we want to take a little moment to share what we mean by GSI. Most of you on this call are probably super familiar with definitions, but for those who might be newer, we wanted to share the definition we're using. So we define GSI as features designed to use vegetation and soils to mimic natural processes and manage rain where it falls, soaking water into the ground and filtering pollutants. So examples of GSI features include rain gardens, detention ponds, or biofiltration ponds, and then some others as well. And then also, we want to acknowledge that GSI is one category within a broader set of features known as green infrastructure, or GI. And GI includes a whole array of nature-based solutions from wetlands and forests to trees, to green roofs, to permeable pavement. And so we borrowed this graphic from Ontario Coalition because it's a great visual representation of the different types of green infrastructure and how they contrast with some of the kind of older school gray infrastructure, stormwater management features like culverts and pipes. We don't have a diagram like this for Austin yet, but we need one, so we'll probably end up making one. All right, so now I'm going to shift gears to zoom in on the project that we wanted to share with you about today. So back in the fall of 2024, an interdepartmental group of us decided to apply for a program called Accelerating Green Infrastructure as Equitable Community Development, which was hosted by the Center for Regenerative Solutions. I saw some of you here who were among presenters or other cohorts in that accelerator, so that's cool. So this accelerator program provided a way for location-based cohorts of government and community professionals to learn from peers in other cities about their successes with GSI. So our Austin cohort included staff from several City of Austin departments that you see listed here, and then one nonprofit partner, which was Austin Youth River Watch. After our initial phase of web-based learning, starting in the fall of 2025, our Austin cohort decided to kind of turn the mirror on our own city and gain a better sense of how we could apply our accelerator learnings and strengthen GSI locally. So we carried out a large landscape analysis, and we've been synthesizing our findings into a report that we're finishing up this spring. But going into it, we already knew some things about GSI in our local context, which is why we jumped at the opportunity to take the accelerator. And so we joined the accelerator with the following goals in mind. First, we wanted to build capacity among City of Austin staff for GSI maintenance. Then we also wanted to explore opportunities for community stewardship of GSI on city land. We wanted to identify opportunities to strengthen equity-focused GSI workforce development in Austin. And then kind of throughout the process, we realized that we should conduct a local landscape analysis so we could better understand maintenance and stewardship gaps and opportunities here in Austin. So as we learned, we also solidified a problem statement for GSI in Austin, one that kind of clearly articulates the sense that we all already had at the outset that Austin was facing some serious challenges maintaining our GSI assets across the city, and there was a lot of kind of unmet potential around GSI here. We realized that the city's ability to design and install GSI far outpaces its ability to maintain it due to systemic issues, and that this dynamic is resulting in a widening stewardship deficit that threatens the long-term function of these public assets. So, the landscape analysis phase of our journey has ended up being quite a quest. We dove in really deep, and we've learned a huge amount about what's working well here, about what's holding us back from building a successful and sustainable network of GSI in Austin. So I'm going to talk a little bit about our process. One thing that we did was we interviewed 55 city staff and community members who work on GSI, including the design, regulation, construction, inspection, and maintenance of these features. And interviewing this many people was a huge undertaking, but it was so valuable. And by taking a human-centered approach to understanding our gaps, we've really ended up with a catalog of powerful stories and testimonials that offer some really cool insights about opportunities for improvement. This kind of catalog of stories is also serving as documentation of a bunch of really valuable institutional knowledge that's held by staff and community members about GSI that's actually not documented anywhere else. And as part of our work, and with the help of our teammates Arlene and Sheridan, we created this thing that you see here on the screen, which we're calling In Their Words, which is it highlights some powerful quotes and then photos of people that we interviewed to kind of give a more kind of a warmer and more real sense of what that interview process was like and what it gleaned. So to help us tell our story from here on out in this presentation, we're going to be sprinkling photos and quotes from this deliverable. So beyond conducting interviews, we also reviewed a whole lot of documents, including city plans, ordinances, and reports. And then once we'd gathered all that data, we analyzed it with the help of a youth intern, Elijah Scott, and then also AI, specifically Google LM and Gemini, which are large language model LLM tools. And the reason that we turned to AI was that we had literally thousands of pages of interview transcripts and notes, and then also some of our document sources, and we needed help processing all of that data into themes and insights. So we were diligent about checking the AI tools work, and we actually had to pivot early in our analysis because when we initially tried to use ChatGPT, we found it was generating some errors for us. And we also ended up establishing some ethical guardrails around our use of AI for this project, which included we hand-selected all quotes featured in the report and in their words document. We used grounded tools like Notebook LM in order to restrict the AI's focus just to our specific interview data and reports so that it wasn't pulling from just other places. We also kept a standard of human accountability. So technology can help find a pattern, but only a human can understand the weight and meaning of a colleague's or a neighbor's story. And so every insight in this report was ultimately vetted and verified by our team to ensure accuracy. So here's one example of what we learned from our colleagues. Chris Charles, a water conservation coordinator from Austin Water, said, here's a quote from Kurt Vonnegut, everyone wants these new things, but no one wants to do the maintenance. And then another one, Denise Delaney, who I saw here, a community education coordinator with Austin Watershed Protection, said, this maintenance issue has been under discussion at the city for at least 15 years with little change. I believe that for the city to effectively maintain GSI features, a centralized responsibility, independent of each department, is necessary. Having a volunteer coordinator is a step in the right direction, but we can't count exclusively on volunteers to do all the work. There also needs to be a city crew that supports them. All right, and now I'm going to hand it over to Meredith Gauthier to talk about our findings.
Thanks so much, Lottie. So this leads us into findings, the current state of GSI stewardship, and our workforce development efforts. Next slide, please. So GSI in Austin has evolved through decades of progress, setbacks, and renewed momentum. I know this is a very small graphic, so I'll just kind of highlight the span from the 1974 Waterway Ordinance all the way to the adoption of the 2012 Imagine Austin Plan, which originally defined green infrastructure within City of Austin, to the 2022 GSI requirements in the Austin Land Development Code. So we did a deep dive into that history of GSI, plus previous reports and policies. We've realized, of course, there's lots of stops and starts along the pathway. Next slide, please. So looking into who's doing the work, GSI in Austin is spread across many, many city departments. There's at least 8 departments, possibly more, with watershed protection leading regulation, design, installation, and maintenance. Parks and Recreation is another major player, managing hundreds of park spaces where much of the city's GSI, especially the rain gardens and grow zones, actually live. Development Services acts as the regulatory gatekeeper, ensuring GSI is properly designed and permitted, while Austin Water supports GSI through rebates and incentives. And then Transportation Public Works and Austin Climate Action and Resilience also contribute through infrastructure projects and citywide climate coordination. And then, of course, we can't forget about external partners. We've got schools, private firms, and nonprofits that play a critical role in installation, maintenance, education, and workforce development. So the community stewardship piece as well. And then our interviews revealed a workforce heavily weighted toward planning and design, with far, far fewer staff dedicated to hands-on maintenance. Strengthening that frontline capacity is essential for long-term stewardship. We also have a real need for an interdepartmental working group that is sustained. Throughout this process, we kept learning of more things that were GSI related that we weren't aware of from the beginning, and just realizing how many folks don't currently talk to one another. Next slide, please. How and where GSI is implemented. We implement GSI through a mix of codes, policies, and plans that both require and encourage GSI across city property. GSI shows up on multiple types of city land, rights of way, parks, municipal facilities, and school campuses, which also adds complexity because each site has different owners and maintenance responsibilities. Public GSI is delivered through 4 main pathways. This probably mirrors what's going on in your city as well, but it might be a little different. Could be interesting for you all to look at this. We've got 4 main pathways: the watershed protection retrofits, city development and redevelopment projects, partner-led installations, and community-initiated projects. And then those retrofits would be large-scale priority-driven projects. City development is adding smaller features, the rain gardens that treat the runoff from new impervious area. And then we have the partners such as conservancies, nonprofits, and AISD that sometimes design and maintain installations. AISD is our school district. And community programs that allow community members to initiate projects that become city assets, then with limited community stewardship. So while they're initiated by community members, they aren't necessarily maintained by community members. In each version, the maintenance responsibility differs. Sometimes there's confusion and ambiguity that can lead to the under maintenance of these assets. And then across all pathways, long-term stewardship varies. Maintenance often falls back, of course, on city staff, which highlights the need for clearer roles and stronger capacity. It did take a while for us to parse out this distribution of responsibilities between GSI initiation versus maintenance. We found these categories helpful, so this graphic or this kind of chart might help you all as well in trying to figure out who initiates, who maintains. That's really key to kind of lay out there. Next slide, please. GSI assets in Austin. So in 2021, we know that we had 933 GSI features maintained by private entities, plus 201 more publicly maintained structures, which treated water from over 5,000 acres. So please note this is 2021 data. It's 5 years outdated. We are aware that we do need the updated numbers. So that's one of the mapping gaps that we have. Next slide, please. GSI assets on city land. We know that Austin Parks and Recreation, we have our horticulture team that actively maintain half of the 32 rain gardens on city parkland. Across the park system, there are 61 GSI features, including those rain gardens I mentioned, bioretention ponds, and vegetated filter strips. Most of the larger GSI features are jointly maintained with our Austin Watershed Protection Department. Next slide. What is working well? GSI. First of all, GSI works. It often works better than the gray infrastructure it's replacing or the gray infrastructure, outdated gray infrastructure models like the concrete lined channels. A lot of folks want to see it to believe it. So show them and tell them. Use photos. Photos help a lot, especially when talking with policymakers and trying to get executive champions on board. Flood control and water quality management are super important, obviously, but the scale of the storm event matters. Watershed colleagues often give the caveat that GSI can't solve all levels of flooding, so meaning huge storm events aren't going to be mitigated by GSI alone. But then I'd like to show this next slide, please, which shows a real life example of a rain garden significantly helping with localized flooding. So this is the newly renovated FAR Tennis Center facility, which is pursuing site certification, which is a sustainability certification. In the center of the slide is the old tennis center building. Now, in a big rainstorm event, some serious water would come pouring off that roadway to the left to the point where they relocated a bus stop. It was several inches of rainwater coming across toward the tennis center, and it would flood that tennis center with a few inches of water entering the building in serious rainstorms. Staff had to put sandbags on the side of the building closest to that four-lane road. But then after in 2024, they added a rain garden and vegetated berm, and staff have not had to use sandbags since that. So really does show even small scale GSI can help make a difference for for staff and for visitors. Next slide, please. What else is working well? I really like to highlight our 2022 GSI policy. This GSI ordinance, it's an important policy milestone for us. City Council adopted updates that made biofiltration, which is a GSI method of managing water quality, the default standard for most new development. That's significant. Green stormwater infrastructure is now required as the primary method to protect water quality for most development permitted using site plans and subdivisions. Examples of green stormwater controls with those now include rain gardens, biofiltration, rainwater harvesting. We also now require stormwater in parking lots to enter parking lot islands and medians where feasible. We can also link the Austin Environmental Criteria Manual in the chat. We know governments love to borrow policy and code language from each other, so please use our GSI standards in our Environmental Criteria Manual as a starting point for your own GSI standards if you don't have those already. Next slide, please. What else is working well? I really like to highlight our job families that have been recently created within City of Austin. Austin Watershed Protection had success in creating a green infrastructure tech job family. It's a real career progression pathway for folks that didn't formally have that level of development available to them, of career development available. Austin Parks and Recreation Urban Forestry also has a new job pathway, job family success and curriculum instruction success. So that's a huge win for City of Austin that was created in 2024. Additionally, our city network of skilled, knowledgeable people already exists. So we have dozens of people who are already doing GSI, possibly even, close to 100 people doing GSI already. We just need to make sure that those folks can talk to one another, know each other exists, and talk to one another. And then also wanted to highlight workforce development programs, which Kirsten will speak more about. Austin Civilian Conservation Corps and Austin Youth River Watch. Those are some successes for us too, to have those partnerships. Next slide, please. I'd like to highlight some more interview findings. This is Leah Gibson, who is responsible for moving the Watershed GI tech positions forward. She's a manager with the Green Infrastructure Program within Watershed Protection. She said, well, we're never going to be able to advance anything citywide without hiring the right people and without providing people a career pathway. GSI is not landscaping, but it's not stormwater pond work. It's in between. We need to call it what it is. We need to hire people that know what they're getting into. Without that, it's just dishonest to hire landscape techs to maintain them unless you're actually maintaining them like a landscaping bed, which some are maintained that way, but most aren't. So that's an important finding. Next slide, please. Root causes and challenges. This photo shows one of our older stormwater drainage facility signs, which is accurate. That's what's out there right now, but that's not as educational to the public. So that's something that needs updating. Next slide, please. So we identified both challenges to GSI success and some root causes that underlie these challenges. The lack of a clear executive champion has resulted in multiple promising starts, but then many halts as well. The stop-start cycle, innovation cycle we mentioned. The lack of also conflicting departmental missions have been an issue with the resulting siloed thinking. And there's a philosophical divide amongst experts on green infrastructure versus the older gray infrastructure with the channels, concrete line channels. And then there's a major one of the major underlying root causes as well is the racism, classism, and of course capitalism that dictates organizational value, meaning that operations and maintenance staff were often excluded from the planning and design process. And then their field expertise was devalued in favor of educational expertise. We really need to elevate the voices of frontline staff in this area. Next slide, please. So I mentioned those root causes that underlie the GSI challenges. These are our major GSI challenges. There's 8 of them. And I'm sure many of you listening can identify with these in your own cities and in your own operations. This will be very familiar to a lot of y'all. Overstretched staff, of course, too many assets, not enough people, workforce development gaps in training and career paths, design and policy without a maintenance first mindset and without maintenance at the table, organizational structure with unclear roles and responsibilities split between multiple departments. And I'll show you some interview findings that really highlight those GSI challenges. So this is Lee Sherman, an engineer with our water quality and drainage program within the Watershed Protection Department. If we can't promise that something will be maintained, then we can't build it. We are limited by the maintenance burden. For construction, there is so much more enthusiasm and funding. But how do we make sure that there is more of a balance and resources available for the maintenance? Super important. Next slide, please. Josiah Wooten, who's a supervisor with the Green Infrastructure team from Watershed Protection as well. If the city's serious about GSI, then the city needs to seriously think about the maintenance and staffing. We need more people. We need to be more structured about allocating a crew to do that work. Stop pulling them away to do other work. A budget needs to come along with assets added from other departments to their workload. Next slide, please. Another interview highlight with Meredith Giles, Parks Grounds manager. Also, Felix Padron, another Parks Ground manager, participated in this interview. Meredith said, things are done to us, not for us or with us, with high expectations of changing operations and equipment and procedures entirely without any coordination. Yep. Next slide, please. And a final interview highlight related to maintenance. John Clement, who's a manager with the Environmental Policy and Review in Watershed Protection. The challenge is maintaining focus and support because GSI consists of a lot of diffuse projects. How do you get someone who can go around and identify 100 small projects? And are they going to be supported through completion of those projects? Is there a path for maintaining them, making sure there aren't further problems, and engaging the community, both through volunteers and other users of city land who might have very different ideas about, for example, the desirability of grow zones? Is that something that we get a lot of complaints about? All right, next slide, please. Finishing the 4 major GSI challenges of those 8 challenges I mentioned. Information management, as I mentioned, lack of updated data has been a problem. Permitted versus unpermitted or more informal GSI. We don't actually know where all of our GSI is on city land. Conceptual framework and unclear definitions. What is a rain garden versus a bioswale? What is biofiltration? Sometimes people say bioinfiltration. What is that related to retention and versus detention? And then public perception, frequent complaints to the city's 311 non-emergency number about grow zones looking unmaintained, looking unsightly. People want to know that those actually are maintained city areas. Community engagement. Community members would like to be more involved in stewardship, so we need to reach out to them and see where they can help. Next slide, please. So our findings in a nutshell. Do we have a pipeline of skilled employees? If we do we have the money to hire them? Then if we hire them, do we include them and listen to them? And if we include them, do we have structures and training that support them? But that's kind of sums up a lot of our findings. Would be kind of good to have just right on the wall as we move forward with our GSI Accelerator program. I'll turn over to Kirsten now to discuss the path forward.
Thank you so much. So on our GSI journey, you can clearly tell we have seen plenty of successes and challenges, a lot of start-stop cycles. The accelerator really did accelerate us, and the Wrangler group that you see presenting today and the much larger network that you saw little tidbits sprinkled throughout our presentation did help us come up with a pretty clear path forward. And we're proposing it as a playbook style. About 30 plus recommendations emerged out of this landscape analysis, the interviews, the reports, the lessons from the accelerator and the peers. A lot of the folks on this call today, we learned from you. We integrated that into our playbook. And organizing those ideas in a coherent category with logical sequence has also been a challenge. But we think that it'll be a guide to help us through the plays or the actions and the players, the people involved. So it's going to offer guidance for us Wranglers and others, even when decisions fall outside of our locus of control. So it helps us set those ambitious moves while still having more small, attainable, maybe nimble solutions and opportunities. The playbook is still in development, so we can't share that with you today, but same thing when the report is released later in the spring, we hope to share that out. So you're just getting a snapshot of some of our recommendations. If you could go to the next slide, please. Okay, So while systematic root causes that Meredith brought up require systems change models and very intentional, long-term work, we know it's not going to be solved quickly. We're going to call for some root solutions, and then we're also going to be working on more immediate attainable paths. So a couple of those root cause addressing recommendations we have are appoint and identify an executive level champion who can clearly mandate to institutionalize GSI across our departments with their different missions. So we reduce that siloing. We also are calling for the creation of a formal interdepartmental natural systems and green infrastructure working group that includes maintenance staff and managed by our interdepartmental department called Austin Climate Action and Resilience. This is not new. There's been many working groups, but we think it's time to re-institutionalize that and subsequently put all of our actions in the playbook forward. We also, within that, for over a decade, many people have been calling for a citywide green infrastructure plan. So we'd encourage that group to work on a comprehensive and unified vision, clarifying terms, clarifying what we mean by GSI, what types count as GSI, updating criteria manuals if we need that, really having a shared understanding of what the heck we're doing together. And then within that, if hopefully you heard this sprinkled out, adopt a maintenance first policy for design, implementation, and maintenance. And that really involves bringing maintenance folks to the table as experts, compensating them for their time, not adding that extra work, but understanding their balance of their plate while also being an essential member at the decision-making table. And we have high hopes for a lot of them. And one at the end that we'll focus on today is adopting a unified stewardship model. And we can go to the next slide, please. So what we kind of mean by a unified stewardship model is this image kind of represents that. And it's coordinated through a green workforce development ecosystem and includes a stewardship lattice. Austin already has a lot of strong foundations, past and present GSI training and certification efforts. We just got that new GSI family adopted in one department. We've had a lot of workforce pathways and community education successes. We had a GSI pathway that was discontinued just before our accelerator began. So when things fall apart, you can be resilient and maybe build back with more intention, collaboration, and really inspired by a larger network. Programs like Power Core out of Philadelphia were a really wonderful model to follow and pitch our new ideas with. And this model is unlike a traditional linear pipeline. An ecosystem and lattice allows for people or stewards from various community member, workforce program participants, city staff, private company, entrepreneur to act together and fill into specific tiers of maintenance needs. You have your frequent trash litter pickup. That's an entry into the workforce. How can you skill build throughout this lattice as you move upwards? And then there's potential to have lattice on lattice. We need community education, forestry. The lattice can continue, and that's by design. At the foundation, equity, maintenance first feedback loop, and removing barriers for participants so more folks in Austin can participate in these kinds of programs. The next slide, please. So this isn't a brand new thing. It might be just kind of synthesizing in a different way. We have a lot of promising starts that have happened or are already in the works, and a lot during our research process, things are going because no one's pausing every work to wait for the research results to come out, which we love. So we'll just highlight a couple that are going on right now. Listening and designing with maintenance. One of our work groups, the Green Infrastructure team, is ensuring operations staffs are part of the site plan review, the punch walk, and the maintenance plan. And they're designing GSI not only for maintenance tasks at the human scale, but also considering the equipment as part of the maintenance plan, which is pretty new for us. We're also having another manager provide tailored training based on her operations staff needs. And this was a little bit outside of the GSI scope. They want that too, but also that career upskilling, technology use, resume, interview prep, that kind of thing. So she's working to bring that forward. The next slide, please. I think we're on that one. Yeah. Build back better with maintenance and community integrated to our workforce model. We have some promising starts that our Austin Civilian Conservation Corps crews are in a different department home, and they are already working and connecting with the many staff who do green stormwater infrastructure within specific teams or other practitioners and planners, and they're going to get introduced to this content throughout their 9-month term. Some leaders of the ACCC program are working to relaunch the GSI apprentice pathway and requesting funds during this current budget cycle. And we're excited that in the works we are going to have 4 GSI interns as a collaboration with EcoRise, that nonprofit we mentioned before. Another really promising start is a right-of-way rain gardens adoption program, like an adopt-a-park model, but in our right-of-way. And that's 2 departments coming together to evaluate whether this structured volunteer model can safely support the maintenance of right-of-way rain gardens without adding more maintenance burden to staff. So there's a lot of next steps and investigations in that space, but it's very promising. The next slide, please. Okay, I forgot to read one of, so if you go back one slide, sorry, the folks in this photo, these are our GSI apprentices that we had from a while ago. And one quote that I didn't incorporate, but I'll read, is from our first Green Stormwater apprentice, Victor Monson. What made his experience go well was the constant communication from the partners. Everyone was always communicating and sharing opportunities. Starn was awesome and breaks down concepts. His training and material was hands-on and visual. And that's direct feedback, and from feedback from many of our folks, they want to get together in person. And that'll be our last slide, please. We are excited to launch the GSI Week this June. It's going to be hosted interdepartmentally, tapping into the deep knowledge and experience of Austin's GSI network, celebrating our work, healing from those start cycles, because that's some real harm, and building off the Grow Green's excellent training materials. We will be in June, right after the week of Greater Greener. So if you are still around, you want to hang out, please extend your stay. We'll bring together stewards and practitioners from city departments, nonprofits, workforce programs, including Austin Civilian Conservation Corps, Austin Youth River Watch, EcoRise, and many others to connect, learn, grow together, and do hands-on skills, sharing our expertise while also taking care of those under-maintained sites on parkland. So we're very excited to launch that.